What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming back at you with another AMA Ask Me Anything. This one's brought to us by Michael, and he's got a question about building muscle while in a deficit if ample protein is being met. So let's dive into that, but before we do, let's roll the intro. So, Michael asks, assuming the physical stimulus is being met, can a person build muscle and lose fat while in a calorie, energy deficit, but in a protein surplus? So, great question. It requires a couple different parts here, so let's dive in. A person can build muscle and lose fat simultaneously. I generally recommend not trying to do both in tandem because they're kind of competing for one another. In order to optimize muscle gain, you need to be in a caloric surplus. In order to optimize fat loss, you either need to be in a caloric deficit. There are a couple situations in which you can do both, i.e. if you are fairly untrained, so that anytime you train, it's pretty much a new stimulus to the body. Your body is not familiarized with it. In that context, someone can certainly build muscle and lose fat simultaneously. If you are an incredibly, young lifter, which therefore means you probably are untrained as well, that's providing a new stimulus, but you've also got higher testosterone as a young adolescent, so that would likely be a situation. If you are taking performance-enhancing drugs or TRT, that obviously is a situation in which you could build muscle and lose fat simultaneously because you've got exogenous hormones coming in to aid in that muscle building and recovery, concept. But generally speaking, for the average population, if they are relatively well trained, so their body is not unfamiliar with progressive overload and stimuli, then that's going to become more difficult. As far as your question around energy deficit and protein surplus goes, that's a tricky one because protein in and of itself is not a great substrate for energy. You're either going to primarily be getting your energy, your fuel, from fat if you are fat adapted using fat metabolism and ketones, which can cross the blood-brain barrier and provide energy both physically and mentally there. Or you're going to be using glucose via carbohydrate and glucose metabolism. If you are incredibly high in protein and incredibly low in fat, you run the risk of protein kind of getting shunted towards gluconeogenesis to create ample glucose for the body. That is not an efficient metabolic process for the body's energy demands, though, so it's not going to be optimal from a performance standpoint. And if it's not optimal from a performance standpoint, you're likely going to see your training hindered, which is going to make preserving and certainly building more lean tissue all the more difficult. So I honestly would not really recommend this setup. There may be a situation where this would be applicable, but I don't ever really recommend going about it this way. If you are in a caloric deficit, it is important to continue to demand your body and your muscles be used, because if you don't use it, you lose it. Especially if you are in a caloric deficit, your body's going to try and make up for that void by becoming catabolic towards your lean mass. So that's not optimal. So if you are in a deficit, it's imperative that you do continue to train and keep those muscles in high demand. But if you're trying to build muscle, as you are suggesting here, then I would certainly suggest you eat at a caloric surplus and ensure that you're getting ample energy from somewhere, whether that be fat, ideally, or carbohydrates, not necessarily from protein. So yes, you can do that, but you are certainly not going to be optimized in doing so. You're going to kind of be stuck in nutritional purgatory limbo, so to speak, not really capitalizing on all the benefits of fat metabolism or carbohydrate metabolism. So I would honestly recommend you pick one side, double down on that, optimize for it, reach the goal, and then transition to the other phase, whether that's building muscle or losing fat. But kind of pick one or the other, not do both in tandem. So hopefully that answered your question, Michael. You requested some chocolate peanut butter cup bricks, so I've got some of those shipping your way. For anybody that does not know how these AMA videos work, if you submit me a well-thought-out question via the link in the description below, and I use your question, then I will send you some free keto bricks with a flavor of your choosing. Thank you all so very much. Talk to you next time.